So my S21 Plus just got updated to Android 13 and OneUI 5. Now this isn't going to be a comparison of which operating system is better. Really, I just want to show you guys the difference between how Samsung does Android and how Google does Android. So the first thing you can see right off the bat is we have a different style app drawer. Here on the Pixel, as you can see, vertical scrolling app drawer. On the S21 Plus, horizontally scrolling. Not a big difference. I personally like how Samsung does it more, especially because I can create folders within the app drawer so that I can keep my applications better organized. Personally, I would give 1 point to Samsung. Next, we have our quick settings pull down. Now, Samsung has done this whole thing about trying to make their devices more one-handed friendly. Let's go ahead and turn down the brightness of this a little bit. Now, Samsung has gone through this whole thing to make their devices more one-handed friendly. So when we pull down from the notification panel, you see that we have this line up at the top, not very one-handed friendly, but then when you pull it down more, you can see that the quick settings kind of bubble up and then you don't see your notifications anymore. On the Pixel, you have all of your 4 quick settings up here at the top. One thing I want to point out about the quick settings is that the touch points on OneUI are much smaller than they are on stock Android. This is a personal preference thing, but personally, I prefer the way they are on stock Android with these big touch points, but I like the placement of these touch points more on OneUI because it's easier to do with one hand. Then again, this is also just a personal preference thing. Another area which is going to immediately stick out to anyone picking up one of these devices is going to be their lock screen and their lock screen customizability. So here on my S21 Plus, you can see that I have my camera on one side. We go there and we have camera. And on the other side, we have flashlight. Flashlight on, flashlight off. I really like this and I find it really useful and I find it really helpful. Also with Samsung, we have our always on display that we can activate with one finger, and then we have this ability to actually go ahead and change our active on display. We can have it show all of our notifications, some notifications. With Pixel, we don't have the same kind of accessibility to always on display. It's either on or off. We have raise to wake. That's a personal preference thing, but what is kind of a bit more objective is that here we only have the ability to customize what's on the left bottom side, and that's going to be Google Home. We don't have any other customization of the lock screen. I gotta give a point to Samsung. Another difference between the two of them is just customizability in general. Let's go ahead and let's go to home settings. And we can see that the amount of home screen customizability is pretty limited, to be honest here. If we go into theming, wallpaper and style, wallpaper colors, themed icons. Here you can see our themed icons for both of these. I think that's kind of okay, but with Galaxy and OneUI 5, you have a ton of different theming engines, icon packs. Normally, you guys know that I use the Pixel icon pack on my Samsung Galaxy device. Just the amount of customizability within Samsung is just so much more full-featured. Next one is widgets, and this is something that I want to talk about because it's a new update in OneUI 5, and it's something I really do enjoy about Samsung, and that is the widget stacks or stacking widgets, which allow me to have in one place I can have a bunch of widgets stacked. So here I got the translation widget, here I have my Google Keep widget, and then here I have my calendar. So maybe Monday to Friday, I'm using the calendar to stay on top of what my schedule is. Weekend comes around and I want to go out here in Vietnam, I have my translator open here. Next up, if I'm setting down to do some work or I'm working on a YouTube video and I want my notes, Google Keep is right here, and it's all themed and it looks really smooth. We don't have that kind of customizability or stacking widgets on Pixel or on stock Android, I should say. And it's something that I kind of dislike. I wish we had a little bit more home screen customizability, but you guys can always just use a launcher to change that stuff later. Now another one is multitasking, and just kind of the way the multitasking works in general. With Pixel, you swipe up, and then it basically turns this into like a quick text selection type of thing. You can screenshot, you can select stuff within that when multitasking, but if you want to close all of your apps, you have to scroll all the way over to close apps. Samsung, we don't have the same kind of utility in multitasking. If we want to multitask and we want to do anything, you can click up here, you can long press, right? But we don't have that ability to just kind of quickly go and select text. Is that big of a deal? No, it's just one company's approach of trying to add functionality. With Samsung, it gives you the ability to do multi-window stuff. Here, for an example, this is a new feature, multi-window. I actually really like this new gesture, and I find that the new gestures in OneUI 5 based on Android 13 to be really, really intuitive, and I would actually use this feature on like the day-to-day on a Samsung device, just because it makes it so much easier to multitask, split screen, and do things like that. So one thing I really like about Samsung over Pixel in general, one thing I really like about OneUI compared to stock Android is that Samsung is giving you like a full-fledged pro mode. You even have 4K, 24 frames a second. You have the ability to change all of these things, mic, color balance, etc., ISO, shutter speed. We don't have that with Pixel. I wish that Google would give us some kind of dedicated pro, or they could even just call it manual mode that would allow me to take advantage of the multi-frame HDR, but give me some more control over things like shutter. The Pro video mode on Samsung is, in my opinion, superior to that on Google. One more thing that I want to talk about is that in the camera modes for Samsung, we have the ability, let's go ahead and just go to video. So with Samsung, we have the ability to go ahead and record HDR video, but HDR video in Rec 709, which means that for people trying to use these professionally, this is much easier video content to edit. We can go in here and we can choose whether or not we want this HDR video to be in HDR with the HLG 2020 video format. We do not have that on Pixel, and it drives me absolutely insane. And it's actually one of the reasons that I don't use the 10-bit HDR video, because when you use the 10-bit HDR video in Pixel, it automatically uses the HLG 2020 color space, and it makes the video much more difficult to edit. And it just makes the whole process a bigger pain in the butt to use. Also, it doesn't give us the ability to have HDR video in the Rec 709 color space. This is something that you nerds probably understand, but most of you average consumers definitely do not understand. This is something for the people that are professional photographers, really professional creatives. Another difference that we have in OneUI 5 versus Android 13 on stock Android is the ability to go ahead and really kind of go in and be really nerdy about some of our phone's settings and features. This is something that I really wish Google did. Let me show you what I mean. More battery settings. We can go ahead and add, we can use the adaptive battery. Same thing like what we can do over here on Pixel. Battery, right? Battery percentage, adaptive battery. So we can turn on adaptive battery, we can change the processing speed, we can go ahead, show charging information, but here we can go ahead and choose whether or not we want 18 watt fast charging, 25 watt fast charging, 10 watt wireless charging, or 15 watt wireless charging. You do not have any of this customizability here on stock Android. Google just wants to intelligently know when you want to be using the fastest charging speed possible with your Pixel device, and it doesn't give you any ability to change any of that stuff. Protect your battery on Samsung is great. I've always had this enabled and I never let my phone get charged up past 85%, but I have these options. With Samsung, I don't have them with Google, and it's something that I miss. This is for sure like 10 points for Samsung. Now, obviously we have all of the built-in apps, but this is more of a personal preference thing. Now, I really do not like the Samsung calendar. I find that in general, it just doesn't always interface that well with the stuff that I'm doing. Google Calendar to me runs better. It just is more seamless and it's really, really kind of fluid. That said, the ability to have specific regional stuff pop up on my calendar automatically based on my location with Samsung Calendar means that I kind of gotta give the point to Samsung for the built-in calendar because it is location aware. Honestly, I don't keep track of Vietnam's like holidays. The fact that my job though might give me the day off means that I kind of need to keep track of that stuff. Samsung Calendar does that for me. Google Calendar doesn't do as seamless of a job, and it's something I wish that Pixel just did a little bit more kind of auto magically. So that's gonna wrap up this video between OneUI 5.0 and stock Android. As you can see, I do really like OneUI. That said, I find that the overall user experience of the Pixel just feels a little bit more modern, whereas OneUI definitely does feel kind of dated. Let me know which one you guys prefer in the comment section down below. Peace.